you feel like anything was solved yesterday with the president coming up here? Do you feel like Republicans are more on the same page than they were?
You know, you're never consistently on the same page, right? So that was one point in time. But, you know, as Republicans, we've got to tighten our ranks. You go into an election cycle, there's really, in a cycle where you expect just historic headwinds, you got to be pitch perfect. You know, a basis point here, a basis point there adds up to a won or lost election. So this is when we have to execute. And if we have differences, they need to be resolved behind closed doors versus things that force 10 or 12 cameras asking me questions about a meeting that wasn't ideal.
Do you think Democrats are kind of benefiting from the chaos?
Yeah, I think anytime. I love, I really, the story about this week should be on the socialist Democrats who won elections and Mandami's rise as the spokesperson for the Democratic Party. That's what I want to talk about. That's what I want people in North Carolina to know. About the rising trend of the left, which I believe is a message, if we can focus on that, helps us win elections in November.
What was going through your mind when you watched the Cassidy-Trump exchange yesterday in that lunch?
Why we're not signing the housing bill.
What's your objection? Was it a mistake for the president to do that?
Look, I can't rationalize glowing review from the White House spokesperson 14 hours before somehow we have distance on our view of the housing bill. So these are just basic sorts of execution faults that I don't have a lot of patience with.
And
the House thinks that they're going to bully the Senate into passing the SAVE Act by refusing to pass other legislation on the House floor. Is that a winning strategy?
Oh, that's super cute. What else?
Senator, yesterday somebody had said that the president in that meeting was touting a message of unity, but at the same time he was going after members of his team.
Well, I look at it from his perspective. I didn't vote, and I've repeatedly told you all, the reason I haven't voted for these Democratic initiated war powers resolutions is that they're a political exercise, right? I fundamentally support what the president is trying to accomplish in Iran. I would have preferred for him to engage some of our partners and allies a little bit earlier in the cycle, but at the end of the day, they're a malign influence, and they chant death to America as a part of their mantra ever since that they've been in power. So trying to make them less of a threat to the United States, I think, is a very important goal. He was frustrated because they're in the middle of negotiations and we have a resolution that passed, which really doesn't have any effect of law, no binding outcome whatsoever. So I felt like he was probably frustrated with the fact that that's a distraction across the table, whoever they're negotiating with. People are, it's a lever for the people that we're trying to negotiate with. And so I could see the frustration. I just don't think it should have gone to that level and be at the expense of us talking about all the areas where we work together. We're talking about our differences at the expense of so many things that I agree with this president. And I think that that's a mistake. And the only people that enjoy that are the Democrats.
What did you make of him calling Bill Cassidy a lunatic?
I'll let people choose whatever words they want to. I'm not innocent when it comes to characterizing people certain ways, so I'm not going to fault anybody for maybe using a term that I've used once or twice on people that I disagree with.
Senator, this morning we're seeing a judge in the case say that she's not quite buying Todd Blanche's testimony before Congress is enough about getting rid of that weaponization fund.
I still think that the weaponization fund needs to be similar to the Powell situation. I think that the White House, Mr. Blanche, and everybody have assured us that this is over. Then I think that they're even open to some sort of way of providing finality. If that's a passage of an amendment or something else, let's talk about it. Because I really want to take that away from you all as a question you want to continue to ask me between now and the election. I believe the president. I believe Blanche. Now let's just get beyond trust and verify it by taking action that makes it finally and completely dead.
But do you feel like he has done enough to personally?
No, that's what I'm saying. I think taking that extra step, the press won't have the specter of it possibly, coming back. It's off the table. I want to take that off the table. I want to focus on the fact that the tax measures passed last year are helping this economy grow as they did in 2017. I want to focus on the fact that NATO allies are paying their fair share for the first time in history, all of them. I want to focus on the fact that we are making headway with getting our economy back on track. I want to focus on these things, not these unforced errors that we're having to deal with.
We need ID to drive,
Last
to
one.
vote, to buy alcohol. What's your objection with the Save America Act?
It's quite simple. It's a math problem. We simply don't have the votes, and the Save America Act will not be implemented in time for this election. Anybody that knows anything about election law understands that, and the reason I do is I passed voter ID when I was Speaker of the House. And if anybody thinks that you're going to implement something as expansive as the SAVE Act in 2 months, see, everybody's talking about November, right? Okay, that's 5 months away. But people will be doing some early voting. People will have to deal with registrations. Does any rational person who's ever had any experience with implementing election law really think that it's possible to have all that in place in time for this election and not be disruptive? And incidentally, it's an unfunded mandate that has $0 for implementation. So I would ask anybody who actually understands how to pass laws, implement them, and have them in place at the level that they need to be to ensure the integrity of elections, how absurd is it to think that could be done by November?
Do some Republicans in the House think this can be done through reconciliation? What is your take on that?
No, it can't. If it could, we'd already be talking about it. Let's just stop playing games. Let's stop being dishonest. Let's recognize that 36 states have some form of voter ID today. Maybe we should go to Utah as a pilot case, get them to implement what Senator Lee is suggesting. They could get it done in a matter of a week and then become a best practice for the rest of us to follow next year. Maybe we should go to Utah and Alabama and other states that quickly did redistricting, get them to simply implement it so that we can learn from that, gain from it, and they can actually benefit from it in this election.
So
Got it.
non-citizens-
Thank you.